About 50 years ago, an astronaut returning from the moon experienced things that he couldn't find a scientific explanation for. So, with some colleagues, he launched a new science focused on the mind and how it works in the body and across space and time. It's the field of Noetics, where the tools of modern science are used to help us understand how what we think and feel affects us and the world around us. Now, this is Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments from the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon.
This is Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, how it works, and how our lives could be much fuller if we understood it better. And I am Ruth Miller, a longtime student of consciousness, cybernetics, and culture, and through this series of programs, I'm introducing some of the people whose work has defined this field of research, and I'm explaining some of their ideas and experiments. I'll also explore some relevant news items and answer questions that you send to my email address, ruth@noeticmoments.org, and Noetic is spelled Noetic. This is our 91st show. And over the course of these programs, we've learned that although the medical world defines consciousness as what we're aware of at the moment, most of what goes on in the mind is not in our conscious awareness at all, but goes on in unconscious processes. From Jung and Freud and other early researchers, we learned that our minds can be thought of as having three aspects: our normal awareness, the conscious mind, and the subconscious mind that keeps our bodies going and includes our fears and beliefs about threats and dangers, as well as the superconscious mind, which connects us with our highest ideals and guides us in our actions. We learned that we can change our state of consciousness to include different combinations of each of these aspects. Then we learned that the brain modifies whatever sensory signals it receives to fit past patterns of experience, following a default network in the brain. This means we see and hear and feel what we expect to or believe we will experience based on the past. And we learned that no one has yet been able to pinpoint how ideas and thoughts are formed in brain tissue. And we saw that our body often responds faster than nerve impulses or chemicals can travel, even before we're aware of it. And some experiments have demonstrated that a person's mind continues to perceive and process for as much as several hours, even when the brain and heart are flatlined and the person has been declared dead. Based on all of these, many scientists have come to accept that what we call mind is not the electrochemical activity of the brain, but is in fact the activity of a field that surrounds and permeates the brain and body. This field may be at least partly electromagnetic because it's possible to measure electromagnetic activity for several inches around the body in what some say looks like an egg-shaped field extending from below our knees to a few inches above our heads. Mind, then, can be seen as a field, a pattern of energy that exists whether the body is functioning or not, and permeates and develops with the body and the brain. The brain, then, is best understood as a receiver, transmitter, receiving messages from the mind, transmitting those to the body, and receiving messages from the organs and senses and transmitting them to the body and the mind. Now, every field is a unique pattern of vibration that's different from other fields, and many vibrate along similar patterns, resonating with each other. We've realized and learned that this field of mind then affects energy and matter in a variety of ways. For example, in the famous double-slit experiments in quantum physics, the subatomic building blocks of the universe show up as energy or matter depending on whether a mind is present to observe them. Some people's bodies, and those of their pets, have been observed to change when someone they're connected with turns attention their way. And for decades now, individuals have changed the patterns of numbers in what should be random grids on their computer screens and printouts. And the collective human mind changes the readouts from random number generators on the network of computers that's called the Global Consciousness Project. Because of the nature of fields and because of things like the Global Consciousness Project, a growing number of scientists are seeing our individual mind as part of a larger field, equating mind with even the quantum zero-point field out of which all matter and energy arises. And some research are using the equations of quantum mechanics, as well as relativity and computer learning algorithms, to describe the role of consciousness, or the mind field, in the formation of matter. These understandings help to explain some of the popular ideas about consciousness these days, including the law of attraction, how the world around us mirrors what our consciousness is focusing on, how we can access information in the quantum or akashic field through insight, intuition, and channeling, how dreams affect the body and consciousness, how music affects the brain and body and our connections with other minds and fields, the role of our state of consciousness in the healing process, how the belief in a treatment can help a patient experience healing, how remote viewing and telekinesis work, how we can get into a state of flow in which the mind and the brain are in sync and maximizing our effectiveness, and how the two hemispheres of our brain are involved in the information we receive from the world around us and from our own mind field. You can catch up on our past shows on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where you'll find links to the clips and books and authors that I mention on the show. So for the past few weeks, we've been revisiting early shows, reestablishing the foundation of our model that mind is a field with many aspects, and the brain is a transmitter-receiver with a default set of neural connections that tend to run our bodies and determine our experience. Now, decades ago, researchers didn't believe it was possible to change an adult brain. But over the past several decades, research has established that the cells of the brain are constantly changing, and they are growing, and they are connecting, and they are reconnecting in new patterns as we shift the focus of our thoughts and feelings. The following clip is a set of instructions on how we can intentionally rewire the current neural paths in our brain.
When we change our routines, or decide to do something differently, we promote the growth of new neural pathways. You can compare these neural pathways to habits because once they've been firmly developed, they stick around unless we give them reason not to. But we each have the opportunity to create new neural pathways in a more rapid and effective way through our intentions and actions. The following process will help you develop new neural pathways that align with what you want. Step number 1. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths to relax. Place one of your hands on your forehead with the palm lying flat against your skin. Now take the other hand and place it on the back of your head with the palm against your scalp. In the front of your brain, near the forehead, is the part of the brain known as the frontal lobe. This area manages your cognitive functions and movement. In the world of chakras, it represents the spiritual center of the third eye, which regulates higher awareness, imagination, and intuition. In the back of your head is the area of the brain known as the occipital lobe, which is primarily responsible for vision. By placing your hands in this position, you are sending subtle energies into your brain and your third eye chakra. These subtle energies are a vibration, or a pattern of pulsation from your hands that add more energy to this portion of your body. Step number 2. Focus on something that you would like to manifest. Call it into your mind with as much detail as you're able to. Imagine yourself touching this object and feeling its texture. Does it have a sound? If so, take a moment to hear it. What are its visual qualities? What type of energy does this thing have? What type of energy does it invoke in you? Take a few moments to really connect with this item. Step number 3. Begin to state the name of this object out loud. For example, if it is a car that you choose to manifest, you might say, 2017 black convertible Jaguar with leather interior. Try to come up with a statement that lists approximately 5 physical features of this item. There's no need to list more features than this, or to say I have or I am. Simply state the name of the object out loud several times with authority. Take about 30 seconds to a minute to do this repeatedly. Step number 4. After you have stated the name of this object out loud several times, you will probably notice that you're able to identify the emotion you feel while observing it. Give a name or several names to this emotion. For example, happy, excited, or peaceful. Anywhere between 1 and 4 emotions is sufficient. State these emotions out loud for about 30 seconds to a minute and really feel how they feel as you state them. Because the emotions most likely make you feel good, put a smile on your face as you do this. Step number 5. Take a few moments to state out loud, "This is my new truth and my new reality." In doing this, you establish a commitment within your mind to begin forming the new belief that you already have this thing that you are choosing to manifest. You are declaring it to be true, and the brain will go to work to begin the process of that. Step number 6. With your hands still on the front and back of your head, open your eyes and continue to think about your new manifestation and how it makes you feel. As you do this, keep your head still and move your eyes only to the right side and then the left side several times. Anywhere from 10 to 15 times of doing this is enough. This part of the process stimulates both the left and right hemispheres of the brain simultaneously. When both sides of the brain are working together in unison, the results are much more powerful. In essence, it locks in the information that you've just given it. Do this exercise 2 to 3 minutes per day for a minimum of 30 days. In doing so, you are creating a new internal design and new neural pathways for new perceptions and behaviors.
Now note that in this set of instructions, the instructor is encouraging us to do a number of things, not just to think about something that we would like to see differently, not just to repeat thinking about it over and over again. She engages the body and motor skills by having us move our hands and placing them on the head so that this is focusing our attention. Then she uses the imagery of a chakra and the brain structure, the occipital lobe, to help us have a visual and analytical sense of what it is that we're doing here. And then she encourages us to form a very clear set of images with sounds and sensations and use words to describe and emotions to give body and meaning to the intention. And then she uses the eye motions to the right and to the left, which actually activate the vagus nerve and facilitate the whole body involvement in this intention. She then encourages us to repeat this several times over the next 30 days. And 30 days is generally understood to be the amount of time it takes to form a habit, which is a new neural network in the brain. Now, some people, it may take as few as 2 or 3 times if they don't have any conflicting kinds of connections, or in others, it's been known to take as much as 6 or 8 months of doing this work. So 30 days is an approximate number, but it is the normal set number. So as you are considering the possibility that the default network you've been living from, the standard set of thoughts about who you are, how the world is, what you can expect from today, what you can expect from the people around you, as you're considering the possibility of shifting all of that, you can use this method to focus on different aspects of the world as you see it, or yourself as you see it, and begin to experience both in a very different kind of way as we retrain this default network in the brain to perceive differently, to express differently, to send different messages to the various parts of the body, and ultimately to be able to receive messages from the larger mind, the Akashic or quantum field, that then reinforce our new understandings. So yes, we are not stuck with the default network that has been trained and programmed into our brain since birth. We can change it, and we can change it with methods that engage our emotions, our capacity to visualize and imagine, our verbal abilities, and the body as well as we can in the experience. Yes. Well, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, and how our lives could be better if we understood it more fully. I'm Ruth Miller, and that sound tells me we need to look at a book and what's going on in the world today, or what you, the listeners, have been curious about. Today I want to talk about books, and there are so many books on this subject of rewiring your brain that I'm going to go through a few of them to give you a sense of what's out there. So if you were to do a Google search on Rewire Your Brain, the book, you will find, among other ones, John Arden's book. He's a psychologist, saying Rewire Your Brain, Think Your Way to a Better Life. That came out in 2010. The description is how to rewire your brain to improve virtually every aspect of your life based on the latest research in neuroscience and psychology on neuroplasticity and evidence-based practices. And interestingly, the description goes over some of the things we've been saying here. Dr. Arden has also written a couple of other books, Brain-Based Therapy, Improving Your Memory for Dummies, and Heal Your Anxiety Workbook. He is a psychotherapist with Kaiser Permanente's Northern California division. Another one is written by Dr. Ski Chilton. I think that's Ski, it's S-K-I. The Rewired Brain. Free yourself of negative behaviors and release your best self. This came out in 2016, and the description is, most of us don't realize we have a surprising amount of control over our own thoughts and behaviors. And it says the rewired brain shows readers how to reframe their negative experiences, overcome their fears, experience emotional and spiritual healing, and ultimately rewire their brains to free them to live free and fearlessly. Another one, Rewire Your Anxious Brain, which is on Audible Books if you're interested in that. This is by Catherine Pittman, and she says her subtitle is How to Use the Neuroscience of Fear to End Anxiety, Panic, and Worry. And I think that would be very helpful for a number of people in our world today. Another one, Rewire Your Brain, Control Your Thoughts for Overcoming Negativity and Anxiety by Emily Goldman. This also is an Audible book, so if you don't have time to read but you're interested in learning more, here those were a couple of suggestions. Back in 2015, Richard O'Connor said, Rewire, change your brain to break bad habits, overcome addictions, conquer self-destructive behavior. And Richard O'Connor's best-selling book, Undoing Depression, became a touchstone in the field. So in Rewire, he expands on those ideas. And he gives, quote, readers a roadmap to overcoming the most common self-destructive habits, including procrastination, excessive worrying, internet addiction, overeating, risk-taking, self-medication, among others. So if you haven't got the message yet, it's really clear that the way to change your life is to rewire the default structure, yes, and begin to live in a very different way. Here's another one by Erica Spiegelman. Rewired, A Bold Approach to Addiction and Recovery, another paperback. And Switch On Your Brain, which is by Carolyn Leaf. And some of you already know Carolyn Leaf's work. It's pretty powerful. Switch On Your Brain, The Key to Peak Happiness, Thinking, and Health, which includes the 21-day brain detox plan. That's from 2015 also. So over the last 10, 12 years, a lot of really good stuff is out there. There are other things, too. There's this one for business. It's Rewiring the Brain, Living Without Stress. And it's written by Rajneesh Roy. And it's usually used more in the business world. Heal Your Mind, Rewire Your Brain by Pat, P-A-T-T, Lind-Kyle, K-Y-L-E. You can teach your old brain new tricks, and this one actually is illustrated. So it shows how the breakthroughs in scientific understanding of how the brain works have shown us how our brains are constantly rewiring themselves. Yes, rewiring the brain is definitely possible. We are not stuck with the default network, and we can begin to live from a state of consciousness which is more in alignment with what the infinite mind of which we are part is constantly bringing forth and bringing out in our lives for us. Yes. All right, now let's see. We have a news item. There's so much going on out there, but I wanted to focus on a new study that's published in the journal Nature Communications. Researchers from the University of Sydney, the University of Queensland, and the British University of Cambridge have been observing how people figure out what something is. And they developed a computer model that's a specific mathematical model that closely matches how human brains work when it comes to vision, interpreting the sensory data through our vision. And what they discovered, surprise, surprise, when you consider they're using a computer model, is that what we do is a lot like a computer model that's called Bayesian statistics. So we use prior knowledge combined with the new evidence to make intelligent guesswork. And the example is if you know what a dog looks like and you see a furry animal with 4 legs, your initial guess might be that it's a dog. And then you might realize, oh, no, it's really a fox or a coyote or a wolf. So they're using this computer model to describe an activity. And guess what? That description says the brain operates like a computer. But the other piece of that is anything that humans do, make, or describe, it has to be based on what we already are and know. So the very fact that a computer modeling technique called Bayesian analysis exists, and that's Bayesian, Bayesian, is because that's what the brain already knows how to do. So I'm not too surprised at these results, but what I'm pleased about is that people are taking a look at how the brain actually interprets data and that it goes back to the past always to find something that is similar and then interpret whatever it is seeing now in terms of what was there before. Yes, this is how the brain works. So if we're going to be functioning in a fuller state of consciousness, one that is not limited by the default programming, the default wiring, the default network of the brain, we want to be aware, oh, this looks like something I've seen before. Maybe it is that, but maybe I can enter into a more intuitive state, less dependent on what the default network is trying to make me see, and discover what is really going on here. Yes, and that's what we'll be talking about in shows as we go forward. Well, that is it for today's show. We're out of time for today, but remember, you can continue the exploration on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, and I understand it's pretty far behind now, so we'll try to get it caught up for you here pretty soon. But there are a lot of things to follow up on it. And that includes lists of the titles and other resources we refer to on the show, as well as the archived past shows. And there's a form. You can send me your comments and questions, and I will do my best to get those answered the next time we're on the air. For now, thanks for joining me here on Noetic Moments, recorded in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon. And have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments. This program is produced in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in beautiful Florence, Oregon, supported by you, our listeners. Our theme music is Tumbling Planets, composed and performed by Jeff Lovejoy. To hear this program again or learn more about Noetic Sciences, search our website, www.noeticmoments.org.
Hi, this is Ruth Miller again. And if you've been enjoying this show, I hope you will remember that it is recorded in a community radio station, KXCR in Florence, Oregon, which means that all of the equipment and the people and the building and everything else that we use to make this show happen are provided by volunteers and donations. So if you could possibly help the folks at KXCR Community Radio, that would be wonderful. You can check them out on the KXCR.net website and get all the information on how to make a donation or to become a volunteer and help make shows like this happen. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.